What if you could sit down once a week with a colleague who's a flat-out warrior? This colleague wasn't a stud in dental school. He struggled. He returned to practice in his hometown, an area once labeled by USA Today as the second worst place to live economically in the United States. And this very same colleague went on to establish an historically successful general practice known worldwide. What if you knew someone that wanted to take you by the hand and show you everything you need to know, from treatment planning to leadership, to maximizing your journey in dentistry or just life? You ready to be inspired? Welcome to the Lionhearted.
Hi, everyone. Dr. Steve Rasner here, and welcome back to the Lionhearted Dental Podcast. I have some really good information for you today. And I don't say this often, but it could be one of those podcasts that if you're listening to it right now on the way to work, you definitely want to go back when you can take some notes, because this is critical information. And truth be told, it is a Sunday in early June. And believe it or not, I do some research for these podcasts. And sometimes I look at blogs I've written or old lectures or recent lectures, and I astonishingly came across something that I did not know that I had written in a form of a blog, and it's critical information. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but let me just tell you about it right now, which you're going to be listening to either to this podcast or the next couple, and that is the verbiage that you need, that your team needs to approach out-of-network patients would be number one. So what's your shtick when an out-of-network patient calls and you're aspiring, as I hope most of you are, to be a fee-for-service practice? What do you say? Do you say, oh, we're out of network, we don't take that insurance, I'm sorry? And I know for a fact that many of you exactly say that, which is a terrible business move for you to make. And I'm going to tell you how to say it. And that's why you may want to go back or have that person in your office go back and take notes, because it is worthy. Let me say from the get-go here that I literally have this already done, and I can send it to you. I mean, come on, man. Could it get any better? I have no agenda. I could probably sell this as a book. You may want to write to me first before I change my mind. So I'm going to go over three protocols, if you will. What do you do? What do you say to number one, that out-of-network patient that calls you, and you're not going to say, oh, we don't take your insurance. Number two, what's the verbiage for getting the significant other and a couple to attend the first visit? What do you say to get that to happen? I know that I've alluded to some of these things many times, but I don't think I've ever really broken it down the way I have it broken down here. And the third one is, well, what is the verbiage for getting paid up front? And when I describe these for you, as I did, to be honest with you, I think very well in this blog, I give you my reasoning behind things too. And sometimes I'm going to literally read it to you and then stop and summarize my thoughts why I came up with these ideas. Just so you know that I live in your world because I'm a full-time clinician still. Things going on in my office. So I tried to count them. You know, I have two offices, and I have very little to do with the one office anymore. I mean, I never go there. And the first office was my original office, and it is run by a very long-time associate of mine who's a terrific dentist, but doesn't do, like many of you, does bread and butter excellent dentistry, doesn't do surgical dentistry. doesn't do really root canal, ortho. It's pretty amazing when I think about it because it's still $1 million practice and none of those procedures are done there. In my office, which is 15, 20 minutes away, which I created about 15 years ago because I was out of space in the first office, I think I have about 15 people that work there. It may fluctuate a little bit. Well, 3 of them are pregnant right now. And it's been a long time since I've encountered that challenge. I've had a hygienist pregnant, a dental assistant. Maybe I've had 2 at the same time, but now I have 3. And then on top of that, I found out Thursday before I left. Do you ever have this happen? Have you ever had anybody walk into your office and do one of 2 things? I'm talking about a staff member. Can I talk to you? Or they walk in, and as they're walking in, they're closing the door. You didn't ask them to close the door. They're just closing it. That never leads to anything good. So that was how I ended my Thursday. And one of my top front desk team members gave me her 2 weeks notice because of medical reasons. And I don't really know what they are. And I didn't feel it was my privilege or ability to pry more than I did. Are you okay? Anything I can do? You're not comfortable telling me what's going on? And she could be listening to this now. I don't know. But I saw her on social media looking quite the party in mood. I don't know what to think. I'm only sharing this with you because I've been doing this 42 years, as you know. And that's a long time. And I will tell you, things happen. You are building a community. You're building a community made up of your staff. They're your work, pardon the expression, don't get mad at me, but they're your work family, your work wives, your whatever. I've heard that expression. It's kind of true. You spend 8 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week for many, many, many years with these people. You watch them have children and children grow up and go to college and all the things that go on in life. And you get close and then you get your heart broken sometimes. I had a hygienist once that worked for me as a dental assistant. Before the dental assistant, she was like a file clerk. I have a lot of these stories. So the file clerks in my office, that's as entry as you can get. File charts. I know most of you don't even use charts, or they'll do errands and things like that. Pick up that phone if it's ringing. And I've had many of them go on to become high-level dental hygienists and other parts of my organization. Anyway, so this one hygienist at the time was a file clerk and then became a dental assistant. Waited for her through dental hygiene school. Became my dental hygienist for 10, 12 years and then left for what felt like an arch enemy periodontist at the time. She could have gone to somebody else who wasn't that. And it's got a Disneyland ending because she came back. But I'm just sharing with you. I get it, man. I think that's why you listen to me sometimes. But this was a tough week. Look, just like I tell you, this is important. I'm going to get to the material. Just like I say to you, it is important for our culture of my office, and I hope yours, for every patient that comes in, every new patient, for them to leave with a good feeling, a good vibe, good karma connection with your office, whether they accepted the treatment you recommended or not, whether even if they left, never came back, requested the records, they really couldn't say that you were sales like and trying to talk them into things and et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of feel that way equally about your team. You are going to get your heart broken. And you're going to have people do stories worse or just like the ones I just shared with you. And you that doesn't mean anything as a leader except that you continue to always lead by example, even at that moment. For goodness sakes, most of our offices are compiled of females, contrary to the present culture of the United States. Most females are the ones that get pregnant. I don't know what's going on in the world. Okay. Seriously. So, of course, you got to be enthusiastically happy for them, even though it's an amazing challenge for you to hold that position you're holding it for most of my staff members who have had babies before usually work through the 7th or 8th month. That's what they want to do. But then you got to hold it for 4 or 5 months. It's not easy, sometimes longer. And, you got to find a temp in today's world and society. Are you kidding? A temp that'll work. It's a lot of work to hold the position. And so I guess I'm just commiserating with you for the moment that I live in your world. So let me get to my 3 points today that I think are cornerstones of successful dental practice. How do you approach out-of-network patients? Well, in my practice, the out-of-network patients, I believe, this is complicated, so stay with me, is 100%. But that's not the end of the story, and you need to hear me. I'm not sure. We might take one plan or even two, and my practice is very close to 100% fee-for-service. I'm not exactly sure. We might take a plan or two that an associate agreed to participate in. And I literally don't know as I'm speaking to you, and but it's 99%. And I need to tell you how to handle that. Okay, so you've heard me speak to this in many, many other ways, but how does this all happen? Well, your staff member in charge of handling this moment when this patient calls, is the most important person in your office. There's no debate in that, because if the person calling your office doesn't get past that call without being incredibly impressed, can palpably feel a difference. Are you kidding me? You guys know that I've had serious medical situation since December that has required me to go to a multitude of different offices, and I can't think of one. And I'm talking about university connected offices, high level, where they do high level surgery and rehab, and I can't think of one that impressed me. Now, I can walk in any Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, anywhere in the United States. And shockingly, sometimes many other types of businesses that have adopted that exact same culture. Specialty food stores in Philadelphia. There's one called Carlino's. There's one called Carlino's, and can't think of the other one this second. And you walk in there and somebody trained those people. And that has to be the vibe that you get in your office. And by the way, while we're on this, and I told you it's going to take a while to discuss this because I knew I'd go off on tangents. You always have to go back to how bad do you want it? How bad do you want your office to be recognized in your community, in your part of your country, in part of your state, if you're in the United States, in Canada, wherever you're at? There's always a business that everybody knows about, and everybody wants to go to that business. And why can't that be you? And if that is you, and you are turned on by the thoughts of that, then you have to put energy And you can't all fix it like from the beginning when you start your organization, but as you evolve, like, what else could we be great at? Could we be better at reception, greeting people, how we answer the telephone? You hear me? I know there's a lot that goes into being a Lionhearted dental practice, and you don't have to all get it in the first year or 2 or 3 that you're in practice. But that is what I aspire to. And you can even have your staff trained. It's very expensive by the Ritz-Carlton. They'll send somebody out. Now, there may be other people, because I have not investigated it, that emulate that style. And, I know when I just lay that down to you and I say Ritz-Carlton or Four Seasons, in your mind, you're thinking, right? You're thinking how fancy and there's marble everywhere. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the way your people, your staff treats people. Do they get it? I mean, it's complete opposite of a government-run organization. You go to the motor vehicles department of your city versus a nice hotel or specialty food store or wherever place that you know that I'm alluding to right now, and you know what I'm talking about. So bring it back home now to that new patient phone call, because that's the first contact. And this person that's doing that doesn't have bad days. They have exceptional people skills that most of us lack. And they must have positive karma in their voice, as if they're smiling. Like, out of my whatever number of people, here's how it works in my office. I have one person that I trust. I have one Michael Jordan, if you will. Now, I've had that person, and I'm fortunate, for 4 decades. So from her 30s, or 20s, I guess, when I met her, to now. And if I didn't, I am 100% convinced that I would be on the hunt for somebody that emulated her positive qualities. Well, whether I had to go to a high-end department store, which would be easy to hijack one of their top employees. I used to do that. I did. I can sit here. See, this is what it's all about, to put together the team of a Lionhearted. What you're hearing right now, I remember when Macy's was a thing. Now, Macy's isn't a big deal anymore. I don't even know if they're in business. But I can remember being in line in Macy's in Philadelphia and seeing this woman meticulously deal with a big crowd. And some of them weren't so nice, in a line to check out. And when she got to me, which I was about third in line, and she finished, I gave her my business card. I really said, look, I know you don't have the time right now. If you've ever thought of getting out of this retail industry and into the health and care sciences, I'm a dentist, and I have a feeling you would be perfect in my organization. And I did stuff like that because you can do that if you're willing to train people. I did it in a restaurant. We all have seen that amazing person that's how they are in life. They're hard to find, but they shine. So when they're there present in your life, whether because you're out to dinner or you're buying something at a store, sometimes they're not somebody you find on Indeed. So I have one of those. And the way it works, of course, she's not always available. So yes, my team has been trained to be like her for 2 to 4 minutes on an initial call if she's not available. So there's still that positive vibe they're carrying, and that's important. And then they end that call with, would it be okay? We have a very dedicated person to that, taking in new patient information. And would it be okay if she calls you back within the hour? And I've never found that to be a problem. When I was a smaller dental practice, of course, Michelle was not so occupied and she was usually more available. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should have trained 2 people to do that. But she's so meticulous in handling it that I'll go this route until I can't. And those of you that have been in my courses have met Michelle, and you even saw her on a couple of my podcasts. And trust me, she's 10x of that in real life. 10x. And you need your Michelle in your office to be that. So how does it begin? I'm talking about this new patient phone call. What's the verbiage? What do you say? I said you answer the phone with a smile because it's difficult to smile, think about it for a minute, and sound negative. I wouldn't be a good one to take that call because I would ignore that. And I would bypass the "you must smile" comment even though they can't see you. So she goes in and she's collecting basic information from this patient. And whenever she has the opportunity, she says positive things like, when they say they work wherever they work. When they talk about, so where do you live? How did you find us? I live in Hopewell, New Jersey. Oh, my goodness, we have a ton of patients that live in that area. And then she goes on, we're a little bit restricted today because of HIPAA. It's also important in that early conversation that we find out how did they find us for our marketing parameters and tracking what's efficient and working for us. And I've told many of you, and you know about it, that when a patient refers another patient, we in the state of New Jersey can reward them, even when we've done it for years and years, with a $25 Visa gift card. And again, I'm taking you through, as I told you, what I know we get into some divergent talk here, but that has been the most effective word of mouth program I've ever instituted. And it seems weird even to me, $25. And it wasn't random. I did my research. I tried other measures. 50 is too much, to be honest. Less than that's not enough. Do you give them movie tickets instead? And you may have to in certain states because they don't allow you to do what I just said. So you have to check it out. So, and back to the point I just made about, how did you find us? It's a good thing for a new patient to feel like other like-minded people that they already connected to trust you. I mean, that's not an abstract thought, right? So that's why we say that. Whenever we can, we have a lot of patients that work in that area that you, or work where you work, and you don't spell out their names, but it's just a good thing. Okay. Also important when we're doing all this, then we get our information, and we even get cell phone numbers today when it's possible, because that has become important for marketing. Okay. One of the things we do, and I know that if you're looking at me right now, I'm kind of reading my blog as I'm talking to you, is, okay. My question on my blog says, why ask for what insurance they take when we barely take insurance? And by the way, a larger percentage than not tell us what they have. And, the one reason all of this may sound calculating to you is it lets their guard down, which I want them to do. The worst thing you could say in the first few minutes is a strict policy of what insurances you take and don't take. So when the patient's out of network, which is basically all the time in my practice, hear what I'm about to tell you. Out of network patients in my practice account for probably 80% of the revenue or more. So what I just said to you was, if we picked up the phone and say, well, we're not in network, which again, I know some of you do, that's the end of the conversation. But the truth of the matter is, as I speak to you in 2023, that's not the case. The case is that if they go out of network, They will get paid less. They get punished by going to an out-of-network dentist. But it doesn't mean they can't go to you. Now, there are some details you have to work out. You have to find out, are the checks mailed from this insurance company, if they're out of network, directly to the patient? Because that is an issue that you have to deal with. When that happens, we have to have the patient pay us everything up front, which is not as warm and fuzzy as the slight alternative. Okay, I'll say that again. Some insurance companies, if their patients go to an out-of-network dentist, will mail the checks directly to the patient, I think on purpose to discourage the dentist from working with that patient. So here's how it works. This is the patient. Do you accept Aetna Dental? Michelle. Yeah, well, let me explain how it works in our office. Although Dr. Rasner is technically out of network, you can still be treated by him with your insurance. P.S. to my audience listening, my podcast audience, that is not true if it's a DMO. And there could be insurance companies, it's your insurance person's job to find that information out and verify. I don't know of anybody as I'm talking to you other than a DMO. And then she continues and says, you'll be reimbursed by the insurance under an out-of-network dentist fee, which is true. A fee list until your yearly maximum is reached. Now, this coverage varies from carrier to carrier, and it will be less than if you went to an in-network dentist. Which brings me to this point. Why aren't we in network? And Michelle actually broaches that. Do you know of anybody that's come to our office in recent years, in recent weeks or months, whatever you want to say? By the way, remember, I have this literally in writing for you, and you can take it and recreate it to fit the style of the person in your office that'll be doing it. And we've worked for years, this is what she's telling the patient, in some similar form that I'm sharing with you. We've worked for years to create a dental practice that is palpably different for most patients. And it's noticeable in 60 seconds. In fact, it should be noticeable in this first phone call. Our goal as an organization is to build a safe haven where dental patients can trust the care providers, where everyone knows your name, where the facility will be state-of-the-art and spotless, always. Patients usually comment that they can feel and see the difference from the moment they walk in here. And for years now, 75% of our patients, like you, are out of network. Now, I know as I'm reading this to you, to my podcast listeners, it sounds robotic a little bit, but it rolls because she's done it for so long. And maybe she doesn't say every sentence I'm saying to you. And then she'll say, now we know for some folks, the bottom line is everything, what it cost. And if that's the case for you, Mrs. Smith, then maybe this isn't the best fit. So everything I just stated to you is absolutely true. And it amazes me how many offices are just okay with announcing we don't take your insurance without ever giving the patient a chance to come for a visit and to see, well, quite frankly, if it's worth it. Do you, in your lives, have you ever considered going out of network for a physician or whoever that you're engaged with because of an insurance policy? I certainly have. And I don't think it's a bizarre once in a month thing. So I'm going to say it again to you. You can work on out-of-network patients. It's what I do every single day. But number one, it takes a lot of energy and effort by everyone on your team to make it worth it to that patient, which I don't think is a big deal. You don't want to be spotlessly clean anyway. You don't want to be upbeat, polite, make people feel value anyway. So what's the big deal? You don't want to be on time anyway? So all these things I personally know are not true in most offices. And it's certainly vacant culture in the medical offices, all the ones I've been to. And so taking out-of-network patients doesn't take place if the protocols I just mentioned are not smooth and effortlessly executed. If your new patient coordinator is uncomfortable, if she doesn't believe in her heart that your office is worth the out-of-network additional cost, if she stumbles under a little pressure, it would be far less successful than I have experienced. So let me tell you another factor that comes into play when we talk about this is so obvious to me, I would think it would be something you would instantly agree with. If you're a Lionhearted regular listener, then you know that I insist on a comprehensive approach to your examinations. Just imagine that for a minute, folks. DrRasner is imploring you to take a comprehensive examination approach to the patients that come in your door. An approach not influenced by their insurance. Do you understand that the majority of our colleagues are absolutely the opposite? What's your insurance maximum? Oh, it's $1,500. Well, let's figure out what works this year. Is that sound weird to you? Because it absolutely sounds bizarre to me. And if that is what you're doing, guess what? Good news. You can change that. I was that guy. I'm sure in the 80s, and maybe some of the 90s, I don't know, I don't remember. I was influenced by all the CE that I took. This is important stuff, guys, that I'm sharing with you right now. And I'm positive that many of you will request this, as you should, and may even need further explanation after you request it. Here's the point. If you go back to my early podcast, I think it's podcast 2 through 6 from 2018, it's all about my comprehensive exam and how I approach patients. And if you did something close to that, it is impossible not to exceed a patient's maximum. Okay? So think about this for a minute. A patient comes in to you and you do an exam, and your conservative, not selling them anything approach, just taking care of the pathology that you witness, from an examination, cost $6,000 in your office. We will consider their insurance if the checks don't go to them, because we've had problems with that. And we'll take $1,200 off that $6,000, so the patient will have to pay us $4,800. And we will submit to them, knowing we will get reimbursed as an out-of-network dentist. Do you follow me? That's an important statement I just made. So we do consider their insurance. And I have an insurance department. It's not big to do exactly that. Now, I just kind of ran over just now the fact when I said to you that the check goes to us, because in the beginning I trusted my patients, and it's just astonishing to me. It's when a check goes to a patient, they spend it. They're like happy that there's like a snow day, like, oh my God, where did this come from? Let's cash it. Even ethical people seem to do that. And I'm here to tell you that's not a situation you want to be in. That's a very bad situation and impossible to end well. Meaning, I can't remember too many situations where the patient says, oh my God, I didn't know. I'll be right over with the $1,200 that I cashed. So let me end with this because it's getting long, and next week I will continue with the verbiage on getting the significant other and the verbiage, which is a big subject, of getting paid up front. I'm just kind of reading right here. I'm going to say this to you. I don't know what you consider a comprehensive exam. I mean, I've broken it down and I've done a lot of things in my career, which I'm sure many of you have learned to do better. But breaking it down into the 5 arenas that I always look at for a patient, and I explain why to the patient in very patient-friendly terms. It's something we do every week with new patients. Has not been something that I ever remember a patient being uncomfortable with. And when you do that, when you do diligence to that type of exam, when you're not willing to just root canal the tooth and pain and hope they come back and like you later, which is a terrible way to run your practice from a Lionhearted point of view. Look, they're either going to give you a chance to do what you do. And I'm not even talking about veneering their entire maxillary arch or crowning them or full mouth rehab. In fact, unless they wanted that or it's warranted. I'm talking about looking at 5 arenas that I have in my podcast from 2 to 6. And are they healthy or not in those arenas? And what can you do to make them healthy? My email is DrRasner@AOL.com. And reach out to me for this if you want it. I think it's excellent. And I think it can help most of you. And you need to have some team meetings beyond just a 5-minute conversation that you are going to approach this new protocol for out-of-network patients. All right, guys. Hope this helped. Hope you've had a good first 5 months of 2023. See you next week on the Lionhearted.